You are listening to Win Win, a podcast brought to you by the global nonprofit organization WIN, Women in Innovation. Each episode features inspiring innovators from the startup world, innovation consultancies, and Fortune 500 companies who share their innovation secrets and career trajectories every Monday. As for me, I'm your host, Zoya Kozakov, Global Product Lead at WIN by night and Product Manager by day. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Win Win podcast and what is actually the last episode of the 6th season of the show. Not only is it crazy that we have 120 episodes, but to have 50,000 downloads in 250 countries across 6 seasons is a pretty monumental milestone for me as well. And what a season it has been. We have had guests from larger companies like Eventbrite, LinkedIn, Frog, Coursera, Kith, and Kindbody, and of course founders of companies such as Signoff, Uva, Tiny Health, Milkmate, and more. Before I introduce our grand finale guest, I wanted to thank you for tuning in and engaging with the podcast for 4 years now, and to tell you how excited I am to bring some amazing guests and conversations this fall when we return. In the meanwhile, I'm beyond thrilled to wrap up this season with the brilliant Andrea Hopelain as the GM and SVP of Publishing for EA Sports at leading video company Electronic Arts. Andrea oversees brand, marketing and communication, partnerships, commercial and business management, and creative for the EA Sports portfolio, including EA Sports FC, Madden NFL, Formula One, UFC, PGA, and NHL, generating nearly $4.5 billion in annual revenue and reaching more than 350 million fans around the globe. We had such a fantastic time chatting, and I learned so much about the industry and how Andrea and her team are uncovering ways to diversify the types of experience EA Sports offers to meet the unique voices and needs of the modern player population. It is also especially exciting to launch this podcast on the brink of an exciting development for Andrea and EA Sports. As she mentions in the episode, they are launching EA Sports College Football 25 on July 19th worldwide. EA Sports created the largest NIL deal to date, supporting over 11,000 FBS football players and creating the first source of guaranteed income for collegiate athletes. I hope you check out the amazing work Andrea and EA Sports are doing and enjoy learning more about this industry and innovation in this space. Hi, Andrea. Welcome to the Win Win podcast.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
I'm so excited to have you and to talk about all things your career and EA Sports. And so kicking off with that, I know that you've worked in the entertainment, media, gaming, sports industry your whole career. And so just to kick things off, was curious to know what about this industry that drew you in originally, and what do you think has kept you in it for all of these years?
I've been really privileged to be able to script a career that's been at the center of entertainment, sports, fans, technology, and consumer experiences. And, really at the heart of that has been my obsession with fans and fandom and brands that make emotional connections with their audience. And so as I've journeyed a really interesting career, I've had the privilege to work for some world-class brands working on world-class IP. And whether it's, sports and teams and, consumers' love for competition, or their deep love for, fantasy character stories, worlds, in the world of Disney and other places like that, really all of the decisions I've made inside of my career have been how I can continue to drive emotional connections between brands and businesses and their audiences.
Super exciting. One of the things that I think that's been most interesting to me about the world of sporting, specifically the world that you're most recently in, is the spectrum of consuming entertainment versus actually participating in it. I know you mentioned the fandom. In sports, there is such an interesting crossroads within the spectrum. So have you thought about this most recently as well as throughout your career, if that's changed?
I think that one of the best ways for any fan to fall in love with a brand is through participating in that brand or in that sport or in that thing that they love. And so I love so much today that I get to sit at the really unique intersection of brands that you can actually participate with and you can connect with via technology and lead fandom forward. And so It's fun and exciting to be able to connect with Gen Z and Gen A in the way that we get to today. We are the first place that they come to become fans of sport, knowing that gaming is their first form of entertainment. And so when you marry, a fan's love of sport, team, competition, athletes, and their ability, passion, and love and adoration for gameplay, it's really powerful to sort of sit in this unique sweet spot of being in an entertainment medium that they love and also delivering them the best fan experiences and interactive and immersive experiences to play and engage with the sport that they love. And so it's really exciting to sort of work in this very unique space and to be what I believe is the front door to sports fandom for the next generation of sports fans to fall in love.
So many industries, you can insert any industry, any company is going to say, Gen Z, Gen A, they're like no generation before them. Talk to me if you feel this way, and how do you think these two generations are different from their predecessors in your space specifically?
First is gaming is Gen Z and Gen Z's first form of entertainment. And They not only love it because they play games, but they view games as a place to hang out with their friends and a place for social connection. And so I think that through play, we're able to offer Gen Z and Gen A a place to socially connect, not only with their friends across the street and down the block and in their neighborhood, but to meet and connect with friends around the world with shared passion and motivation as sports fans. I think that that's really the unique place that we sit and the unique ability for us to meet the expectations of this next generation.
And what about in terms of brand? Do you think you've had to make changes to the brand or the way you communicate to these generations?
We've certainly shifted our marketing strategies over the years to meet the next generation of fans. And that comes through the different channels with which we market, the different types of content we create. I think any brand is doing that. And, hopefully we're doing it better than most. EA Sports has been around for a couple of decades, and many of our IP have been around for a number of decades. And I actually think that equity helps us. You have athletes today who are playing in the NFL who grew up playing our games. Right. And so it's super authentic for them and super powerful for them to be able to see themselves now inside of our games. And it just makes them even greater of a megaphone and even more authentic and real for our fans to see the sort of crossover role that we play and to connect with us, because athletes today are such real advocates. It's not like we're paying them to be advocates and to talk about our business. And they truly see it as real. We've got great stories of coaches in the NFL that are using, or coaches in college football that are using Madden plays because they know their players grew up playing Madden. And so they're like, hey, go in and run this play. And everybody knows it because they played it in Madden growing up.
Incredible. And you guys are in such a unique spot. Again, I think that the role of play in people's lives as a whole is just such a special, happy one. I know that when TikTok first came out, one of their slogans or taglines was like to be the happiest place on the internet. I think you guys are kind of giving them a run for their money. But, speaking of the next generation, I know there was this critical moment associated with NFTs a couple of years back, and there's always the new thing popping up. When you and your team consider next gen experiences, I'd love to hear, one, how you guys do that as a whole, but also you as a leader. How have you continued to educate yourselves on these innovation type skill sets or technological advances?
Yeah. I would say at the heart of who we are, we would say that we are innovation leaders, and we are driving, some of the greatest innovation in sport right now and technological advances in sport, just by virtue of the way in which we're driving immersive experience for sports fans that are representative of the authentic world of real world sport around us. As we think about the net new experiences and all the things that we build today and into the future, there's been plenty of trends that pop up. NFTs are a great example where there's a lot of momentum in the industry that gets built around them very quickly. And for us to continue to lead in the space that we're in and continue to delight and engage our fans, we always, as much as, we want to drive progressive innovation and we want to make sure we're meeting the next trends as well, we're really, really intentional about making sure that whatever we're doing adds value to our player experience and is something that will be accretive to their experience. When we start chasing trends without a real understanding of what the consumer experience looks like, both on our platform and off of our platform, is where we lose the trust of our fans. And so we're always rooted in making decisions on based on them first and foremost.
And what about you as a leader when you see that new trend hit your desk? How do you personally get up to speed really quickly?
We have a really talented team, and across the team, there's a number of people who have many interests in many unique places, and we have skills in a lot of places. We definitely do our best to canvas. I do my best to canvas the greatest insights we can get as quickly as possible, whether that's through polling of our fans, whether that's through quick industry research. We've got an amazing corporate strategy team who is at the ready always to help us get arm us with as much information as possible. But most importantly, we do that. We gather the intel and then we go right to our fans. And I feel like the best voice of reason for me is not just always the things we think we want to do, but it's the voices of not only our current fans, but our next generation fans, because you can always find that there's a difference between the two of them as well. Some of our next gen fans have a greater appetite for some of the changing conditions in the marketplace. They're much more apt to want tools for, user generated content and to be able to contribute to the game environment, where some of our more veteran fans are still really loving the product they've always known. And so talking to our fans and having a direct line with them has been one of the best ways for me to get a temperature check on some of the efforts and some of the trends that are happening around us.
And if I may double click into the talking of the fans, because especially you guys have millions and millions of fans around the world. And especially as you get to that sort of scale, it gets harder and harder to really see and talk and really feel your fans. So are there any sort of methodologies or practices that you guys use and can share more about how you connect with the fans?
Yeah, we have over 350 million fans that come into our experience on an annual basis, which is the size and scale of that. There aren't many sports brands that can say that. It's quite powerful and it's really energizing. And to your point, it's huge. There's no way to touch, and to sort of talk to every single fan in that fan group. We work with our communities really deeply on a number of levels. We work with select members of the community and tastemakers in our design process. And so we have design councils that we're constantly validating choices by. Our development teams will come up with great ideas and great playables, and we'll run it by our design councils and our community councils to get a taste of how are they feeling about it? How does it land for them? What input and influence did they want to add to it? We're constantly looking for their points of view along the way in our development process. And then, as we get closer to launch, we invite members of our community in that have great trust and admiration from fan bases around the world. And we invite them in for preview events to be able to get a taste of our games and get a sense of what we build so that they can be on the front line as leaders in communication with us and as ability to continue to drive the way and lead the way as influencers in their communities to share out what we've built, why we've built it, and the choices behind those decisions that our development team has made in support of delivering the best experiences. So we work with our community really closely. Look, if there's an issue too, we're always on the front lines with the community, kind of talking through what are they experiencing? What are we able to change? How are we able? They drive immense scale for us. And uniquely, each of them has a point of view on the audience that they serve. And so it's really a great process for us and leaning deeply into our communities around the world.
That's incredible. I love how it's both an art and a science, which I think typically is what leads to the best innovation. Digging a little bit deeper into community and gender specifically, I know that you are an incredible example of somebody who's at the intersectionality of gaming and sports, and we will talk about that from your personal experience. But, just as a consumer, I'm really seeing such a big tide shift in terms of more and more women being interested in sports, participating in sports. And I imagine that trickles over to kind of the world of gaming as well. Is that a trend that you've seen? Can you share more about how you guys are engaging with this new set of fans?
Yeah, At Electronic Arts, we have almost 50% of our fan base is female,
Wow.
which is an unbelievable stat when you think about the percentage of people in the world that are gamers. To almost have a 50-50 split at this company against across all of our IP is something that we're really proud of. In addition, it's been awesome to see the women's sports movement really, really take off over the last couple of years. It's in almost every public conversation around sports now. And I'm not surprised. It's been a long time coming, but as a former female athlete or former athlete, I should say, without the qualifier, but as a former athlete, it gives me a lot of pride to see this very mainstream conversation around women's sports happening. It's not new for us to be in women's sports. We've invested significantly over the last decade in women's sports. We brought women first into what was EA Sports FIFA at the time and is now EA Sports FC. We brought women's club soccer into the game about a decade ago and have been advancing over the last 4 or 5 years, new technological foundations that have allowed us to bring women into an even more competitive mode of the game in the last year, which is women inside of Ultimate Team in our EA Sports FC game. As I mentioned, we built really great technological new skeletons for all of our female avatars inside of our game. And so what that means is, obviously, underneath each avatar, underneath each character inside of our game, they're powered by a skeleton. And we built a very unique female skeleton that mimicked the art of how a female moves, the curves of the body, the way we run, the way that's very different than the male gait. And so that was part of our sort of innovation and foundation over the last 5 years, which led to our ability to bring in women in a more competitive mode inside of the game because we did it authentically and we did it right. We've also brought women into our PGA game, into our NHL game, got female refs inside of Madden. And so this is not new for us to be in this space. In addition to the efforts that we've done inside of our game, we've invested deeply outside of the game through a Starting 11 fund that we announced a couple of years ago, which was an $11 million fund to help us invest in women's sport, in particular football. And even last week, we announced a 1-year anniversary of FC Futures, which is our big initiative to grow grassroots sport. Last week, we partnered with UNICEF and UEFA to announce the next chapter of that partnership, which will grow grassroots football for young women in Namibia. And we hope to reach, more than 40,000 youth over the next year with the sport.
Absolutely incredible. And I do love that you're busting myths over here with the stats. So I do really appreciate that. And turning to you personally, as I mentioned, you are at this really interesting intersection of both sports being a male-dominated industry and gaming as well. Talk me through what that experience has been like for you and whether you have insights on how to navigate a male-dominated environment on days that aren't so good, as well as on the good days.
I think I've learned mostly from my own mistakes. I started out in the sports industry very young. Early in my career, I worked for Fox Sports and then worked at ESPN for a while. And I was very fortunate to be able to speak sports. I followed sports, I played sports, and I felt very comfortable in the world of being able to talk about athletes and teams and competition and who was winning and what was happening. And so it made for a fairly easy place for me to feel like I belonged and I fit in because I could talk the talk, at least on enough of a basic level and with enough depth that I felt credible. I think what I failed to realize in that moment was that there was a number of people around me, many women included in that group, that didn't and couldn't, but were really proficient in the jobs that they were hired to do, but didn't have the sport talk or the ability to sort of relate to some of the conversations that I could very easily fit myself into. And I didn't realize in youth that it really alienated me from some of the other women in particular and some of my peers that couldn't comfortably sit in those spaces, but were really talented in the things that they were able to do. And I learned that a little later in my career. And I learned that through some feedback, some very hard feedback that I was given. And I was really grateful to receive because I think that's really what shaped the leader I've tried to become over the years is someone who can be inclusive, someone who drives for a diverse point of view, and someone who isn't looking for more people like me or like those that, are really deep in sport or deep into gaming, but that we invite and appreciate and really build teams that bring out the best of everyone. And so I think I've really learned through my mistakes and learned through the feedback, but also it's empowered me to really teach and coach this amongst my team. And hopefully I show up for my team in that way of open-minded and ability to bring a broad set of voices to the table, because I think that that's what's most important is there's room for everyone and we have to make it.
Yeah, that's great insight. And, in terms of having those hard conversations, are there any tips or insights that you can share? How does one go about having those?
I believe very much in a learning mindset. And probably some of this stems from playing sports my whole life. You're used to being coached and, you don't get the ball in the back of the net on every shot. And so you have to improve. We spend more of our life practicing than performing. And something shifts for people sometimes when they move into adulthood and they feel like they always have to perform. And they always are, they can never have anything that doesn't perform perfectly. And that is such a misnomer. And so my advice and the way I like to lead is through a learning journey and making it okay that we're learning along the way, not that we're winning at every turn. And so I think that so long as we're mostly all trying to move the ball forward, it doesn't mean that passing it backwards and sort of resetting the ball isn't part of advancing the ball forward. And so that's really the way I like to think about it. It's what I like to coach and teach. And it leads to really open, transparent dialogue with my leadership team and with the teams around me on how we learn versus how we win. I think we will win when we're learning.
I love that. Beautifully said. I'd love to ask just one more question before we dive into our big finale question, which we ask all of our innovators. You've spent a lot of your career on the brand side of innovation, and I really am super interested in, brand innovation and product innovation, that Venn diagram sweet spot element. I really think that's where a lot of the magic happens. So, I know you've worked with a lot of cross-functional partners and externally and internally. So what are your biggest learnings that you've had about this song and dance?
I think that you need both brand leadership and stewardship and product innovation. Consumers need, especially when you're launching a new game or a new experience on an annual basis, I think that there's an expectation from a consumer that you're bettering your best and that you're improving the things that they've fed back on. And so I do think that product innovation is really core to how any brand persists in the world and continues to have longevity. And so hopefully at EA Sports, I think we're pretty good at that. I think the innovations that we build inside of our games and experiences every year are tremendous and are really leading. If you think about the ways that we've integrated machine learning and AI into the building, it's only making us faster in how we replicate the authenticity of real world sport into our play experiences for our fans. I also think that we have to keep innovating beyond games. We've had a number of experiences over the last year that start to push us into new categories. We've launched deep collaborations with brands like Nike, where we're giving players new ways to play and new ways to purchase inside of our game. And so partnerships have been a big innovative space for us of connecting partners in sport and leaders in sport together with us. And I would say with that, your brand has to grow. Your brand has to open the aperture for fans, and all of your brand marketing has to set the table for an acceptance of new big things coming and additions to what they love. They may not love everything, but a great brand marketer is also setting the table for consumers to be trained and conditioned that you are going to step beyond what they know you're capable of today. And if you're good at it, you will keep doing it and that you will keep delighting them but you will make some mistakes too, and that you'll have room to correct those with the consumer. And so I think a great brand sets the table for consumers to fall in love with you and trust you, and your product innovation is how you map your words with your actions.
I love that. Yeah, I could not agree more. And so with that, looking a little bit ahead, where do you see yourself and your industry 1 month from now, 1 year from now, and 10 years from now?
Ooh. All right. 1 month from now. 1 month from now, we will be on the precipice of launching one of the most heavily anticipated games in history at EA and EA Sports, which is the return of college football. By all accounts, it might be one of the most exciting things that fans are looking forward to from us, and a place that I believe our leadership is going to really soar as we bring back a very popular sport inside of our ecosystem. So I'm quite excited about that. 1 year from now, I think we are making a lot of progress right now on reaching and meeting the next generation of fans. And I think we're leading the entertainment space forward in terms of innovation. And so I think not only will our technical innovation lead us forward and will help us reach hundreds of millions of more fans over the next couple of years, I think you're going to continue to see a blurring of the lines between a really immersive view of sport into the future. And I think that we're going to continue to innovate and make that line almost seamless between real and physical sport. And then I think in the next 10 years, you will see EA Sports truly as the leader in sports. I think that there's plenty of brands out there today that are doing sport really well in different ways that consumers are engaging with them. I would say to you that EA Sports won't just be a games company in 10 years. EA Sports will be a full-fledged sports entertainment company with many vectors of ways that we are delighting and engaging sport fans around the world.
Very, very exciting. And I'm sure all of us will stay tuned and follow along. So thank you so much, Andrea, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to Win Win, brought to you by WIN, Women in Innovation, and myself, Zoya Kozakov. If you enjoy this podcast, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and visit womeninnovation.co to learn more about our organization, programming, and other opportunities. And remember, when women innovate, we all win.